Okay, so task 7, something with trigonometry. So before we get into the trig, just want to make you realize something. You know, if you ask an American versus a Canadian how much they ran, let's say today, an American may say 1 mile and a Canadian may say 1.6 kilometers. They're the same thing, they're just using different units. Or you go from one country to the other and you may ask how much does something weigh? Someone may respond in kilograms, someone may respond in pounds. And last but not least, you ask someone how tall they are. In some places, they will say, let's say 6 feet. And in another place, they may say 182 or 3 centimeters. Okay, so they're all the same thing. They're just different units or used to measure. So similarly for trigonometry, if you've never seen this before, don't worry, it's okay. Okay, but it's important that you recognize this on your calculator. Just like there's miles and kilometers, there's degrees, like when you measure a degree of a triangle, let's say, and there's something called radians. And you may not have heard of radians so far, but that's okay. Just accept for now that there's something called degrees and radians, and they're just different measurement tools. Okay, but don't worry about it if you've never seen it before. We'll just try to graph a function, f of x equals sine x, and determine when x equals 90 degrees or when x equals pi over 2 radians, what happens there. Okay, so just again, for now, accept that 180 degrees is pi radians. Okay, so if you divide both of them by 2, that's what we got here. 180 divided by 2 is 90 degrees. Pi radians divided by 2, well, it's just as a fraction, pi over 2. Okay, so let's graph this and see where this takes us. So I'll actually just start with a new one. And let's go with sine. So you can click on this trig button. Sine x, enter. Okay, and it looks like this. So it's a sine wave. Now, what are we in? Are we in radians or degrees? Well, if you look at the top right, you'll notice this. Okay, so it's automatically set here to rad. And if you just click that, it changes to degrees. Now you can see it looks very different. Okay, so we got to think about that a little bit. But for radians, this kind of looks like a normal sine curve. This looks like we're not seeing anything. Why is that? Well, first of all, this is, pi is 3.14 approximately, as you know, okay, and this is a much smaller scale here. But radians, if let's go back to this, if 180 degrees is pi radians, well, that means about 3.14 radians is the same as 180. So the scale is very different. So if we change this to degrees, well, we got to make this a lot bigger now. Okay, so let's just put in, say, 1,000, and now it kind of looks like a sine curve. Okay, so the first question here says determine f of 90 degrees. So we want to let x equal 90 degrees. So we're in degree mode, so that's good. Go to menu, trace, trace, and then type in 90, and the answer is just 1. Okay, so very simply. Okay, but the second question says determine f of pi over 2. Well, now it's in radians, so you have to change this calculator back to radians. And yes, that looks very funky. Okay, excuse the calculator. Okay, and I can't click that right there, so I'm going to have to do this another way. Let's go to Windows Zoom. Let's just go back to standard. Okay, so there we go. Okay, so now menu, trace, graph trace, and just type in. You can type pi, that would work. The calculator will understand that. Okay, actually, let's just do it both ways. Pi over 2, and you can see it's also 1. The other way of doing this is menu, and once again, graph trace. Okay, instead of that, you can click the pi button right beside the letter H, just right over there, pi. So pi over 2, and it'll give you the same thing. Okay, so yeah, the main important part now is just recognize there's something called radians and there's something called degrees. And depending on the question, if the question's in degrees, you should answer in degrees. If the question's in radians, you should answer in radians. Okay, and that's it for now.